Not yet. I think we're live.
Okay, I think we're live too. Hey guys, if I think there's a few of you guys waiting in the queue here, so we have some people already. It's a little different than past lives I've done. This is my friend and colleague Adam Price. Some of you might have seen him. He works with guys like Jimmy DiResta, Samurai Carpenter, a bunch of guys. We've done stuff together over the last couple of years, and I told him I have problems with my lives of there's too many questions, too many things happening at once. And he's like, dude, I can ring master for you. So he got some questions from you guys. He has questions of his own. So I'm basically going to turn this over to more of like an interview because you can still ask questions over there and he'll field those, but it'll be much more organized than my past lives.
There we go. Okay. Well, thanks for the intro, Cam. My name is Adam Price, as you can see there, and thanks for having us on your channel. My job today is to actually help you communicate better with your audience as we go through this process, because you'll see my eyes going everywhere trying to field your questions. If you have a question, by all means, just put it in the comment and we'll bring it in if it's relevant to what we're talking about, or if it's just absolutely fantastic, then we'll bring it on the live and the man here will answer it for you as we go through it. If you can, in the comments, it looks like there's a few hundred people here right now, which is great. Could you just give us, here's this guy right here. This guy, never met a bad, his name's also Adam. He's never met a bad Adam. So if you could just let us know if you can hear us, that would be awesome in the comments. We'd really appreciate that. Tonight, we're going to be talking about, it's kind of a two-part series, and we won't keep you much longer than a half hour, 40 minutes. We're going to try to keep it to that. If that works for you, Cam, hopefully it does.
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. And the first part, I got questions for Cam, and hopefully you guys can jump in as well and throw your questions into this. We're going to be talking about woodworking as a business and then jump into woodworking as an online brand. So as the questions come in from you, like I said, we're going to encourage you to do that. Post them, and then I'll bring them into the conversation with Cam. And again,
this is good. This is good that you're here because I'm already like seeing the questions coming in, and I'm getting sidetracked. I'm like, oh, some guy asked. He asked about a fence. I wanted to talk about my fence. So anyway, good thing we have Adam.
Okay, well, there you go. Okay, let's get right into this. If you've watched the video where I believe it was titled "I Quit," we won't get into the weeds with that. But, what is the origin of Blacktail Studio as a woodworking business? If you don't mind sharing that with the audience.
Sure. I've talked about this a little bit, so it might be repeat for if I actually have any hardcore fans. But I was a helicopter pilot for about 10 years. I was doing EMS, the air ambulance, and it was a good career. I liked it, but I wasn't passionate about it. I was passionate about the schedule because we had 7 days on and 7 days off. And so with my time off, I needed a hobby, kind of like people during COVID. I was just like, got to fill my time. And I just started woodworking, and I wasn't very good for quite a while. And eventually I started getting a little bit better. And I told my wife, I was like, hey, I want to sell some of this stuff. And she goes, you should. And I was like, oh, I kind of like affirming, like, all right, I can do this. And started selling stuff. And then I started a little bit of social media and found out I was probably better at social media than selling stuff. And, fast forward to today, it's kind of just been on that trajectory.
So, from that, what was like the mission for your company? Like when you started it, like what was kind of the first goal when you're thinking about acquiring your first clients?
It's funny is all I wanted to do was make a little bit of money to buy some more tools. Like that was the absolute apex of where I ever thought that I could be as a woodworker or woodworking company. Is like I saw some guy that was pretty close to me. I saw he'd sold enough stuff to buy a Festool track saw. And I'm like, oh, why can't I be like that guy? And so I just wanted to just make a little bit of money and cover the expenses. But that's, where it started. And I've always feel like pretty good with customer service and that type of thing. And so once I started getting clients and, treating them okay, and kept getting more clients, and it just kind of snowballed from there.
Awesome. That leads us right into our first question from people watching live. It's great to have you with us, by the way. And this comes from Daniel Pickle. And it says, what was your first project that you felt was worth selling?
Oh, that's a loaded question because
Oh,
I don't know that I really believed it was worth selling, but I can tell you my first project I sold a barnwood coffee table on hairpin legs. Like everybody has, every woodworker has made that. I don't want to say every woodworker has made that. Every beginning and bad woodworker tries the barnwood ones. I sold it for $300 on Etsy in like a week. It sold fast, and I thought I was like juggernaut, Elon Musk of woodworking, selling my first project. Um, I had put free shipping on it, and I didn't know how expensive shipping was going to be, so I paid like 150 of the 300 for shipping.
yeah.
Uh, but yeah, I don't know that it was worthy of it, but that was my first project that I actually sold.
So for somebody just kind of getting started, what would be like a great project to kind of start with?
I think a great one. I don't want to promise it'll sell because that's kind of a different conversation. But I tell everybody, especially with epoxy,
Mhm.
try an epoxy serving board like this one. So
Okay.
this is nothing special. Backward screen. This is a couple elm burl pieces that I'd cut in half, and I had some extra epoxy from a project. So I just made a serving board, and I tell people, if you want a dining table, please, please, please make a serving board first or
Right.
something small,
Great.
because there's so much you'll learn just on that first project that I think it's a really good practice project.
So, hey, I got an idea. Can you hold that serving board up again? Would we be able to give that away in this live? Is that cool with you if we give it to somebody
Well,
hanging out with us today?
you're putting me on the spot here, but no, yeah,
Yeah.
no, I actually don't have anything that's not spoken for. It's not for anybody. So yeah, let's.
There you go. That we're going to give that away to somebody. The best question out there. If you stick with us and you're posting questions out there, Cam will send that to you to continental U.S. How about? So for the
That's fair.
U.S., nothing against the U.K., but its shipping is just
And
nuts. So
Adam's in Canada. He gets it.
yeah. No. I can't ship anything. So we will send that to you. If you have a great comment, go ahead and put it in there. And if we get to it at the end of all this, we'll wrap it up, and Cam and I will kind of debrief afterwards, and we'll make sure that you get that serving board. We'll mail it out to you. What leads in?
Who's choosing the best comment?
I think probably you have to do that. You
All
have
right.
to
Well,
do that.
you at least give me a list of ones, or maybe here. I got a pen. I'll write one down if I see a good one.
Okay. You don't get distracted by them though, because
Sorry.
we gotta
Focus.
mine your brain here, which leads into the next question that we have is in terms of, so you go from your own and then your commissioned projects. How did that start, and like how do you kind of jump off that ledge?
Um, you know, I think I had the good fortune of that some lady wanted. I'd made one kind of pretty mediocre epoxy table, and it had a nice layout. I felt like I had a pretty good eye for a layout, and a lady liked it, and I had it on Etsy, and she wanted a walnut and black epoxy one, and I was like, brown with black, like that's gonna look funny. That's too dark. But she at least had enough faith in me to commission that. And that's kind of the origin of all my black epoxy and walnut tables, because I thought it looked amazing. And from then, people just kept ordering them. And if anybody wants any advice on having a small one-man business, people pay probably twice as much for something custom as they will
Mm-hmm.
pre-made.
Mm-hmm. And then kind of that what's that feedback that you get? So let's say a commission comes in and somebody wants to hire you to build a project. Can you maybe walk the audience through that process for those of you watching might be interested in how that kind of unfolds?
Like
So
how a project gets commissioned.
yeah, from how it gets commissioned, and then kind of the feedback, maybe a little bit about the design process, and then kind of
Mhm.
like when it actually gets delivered as well.
Sure. I think people will pay to be involved and pay for the work that something takes. So I'm very, I don't know if thick skinned is the right word, but like I don't get annoyed, or at least I don't let them know I'm getting annoyed throughout the whole process. So they reach out usually via email, tell me what they're looking for. We have a couple emails or a phone call early on, get the design idea. I take a 50% deposit prior to starting anything. I don't do contracts. I probably should, but I've had good luck so far without contracts. And throughout the whole process, I choose the wood with them. We choose the layout together. We'll be like on FaceTime, or I'll send them photos. I don't really leave anything to chance, because if you have them involved in the whole process, there's no surprises as long as you're a decent woodworker. And so when they get it, they're excited. Not like, if I just did everything, there'd always be like, oh, I hope they like the layout I chose. I hope they like the wood I bought. But if they're involved with all of it, then they're going to love it. So we go through the whole process. Prior to me sending it to them, I get the other 50% plus the shipping, and then I ship it out.
Great. It's just over communication then, in terms of
lots of communication. I tell everybody that I'm like, if you don't want to be bugged and this many phone calls, I can handle everything myself. And I don't think I've ever had anybody say that. Everybody wants to be involved.
Awesome. Well, leads into a great question from Daniel. He asks, like, how did you start your client base?
Just one at a time. And I believe it or not, I don't get a ton of repeat customers. And that said, I'm quite confident. Like, I haven't had any upset customers. I think most of it, I have a handful of repeat customers, but most of it's just new orders. So it's just one at a time. Everybody thinks there's some magic, oh, you got to get in touch with one architect, which would be great. But for me, it was just one email at a time.
And then, and then it just kind of snowballs from there. Do you get a lot of referrals coming in? Like, obviously not now with the scope of your online brand, but was there a lot of referrals in the beginning, or how did you kind of?
Some, but the social media, even when I was before I had a YouTube page, but I had a decent Instagram page. Social media is the best advertising you can do, because people get to see how you built someone else's table, and they can understand how their table is going to come together. So I tell everybody, just all the social media. Don't spend money on ads. Don't spend money on ads. Just do social media. Just do honest progress photos. It takes time, but it's the best advertising, and it's free.
Question from the audience here. What's the easiest way to price your projects? Like, somebody commissions something like that. How do you even start?
Well, I can tell you how you start, but this is not a masterclass on pricing your work, because I'll tell you my secret, and it's a little embarrassing, but I hope it might resonate with someone. And I've done this forever, ever since I started. I charged as much as I thought I could, where I wouldn't be disappointed if they said no. Does that make sense?
Say that again. I'm daft.
So I charge as much as I think I can get, where I won't be disappointed if they say no. And I'll give an example of that. So if it's a project I really want for my portfolio, I haven't done blank, and I was like, maybe a round table. I really want to make a round table. And so it's like, oh, that's going to be cool. It might make a good video, whatever it is. I want to price that very competitively. But if it's a table I've made 20 of already, and I don't need it for my portfolio, and I'm tired of making them, maybe I'll charge a little bit more. And if they say no, I don't care. But if they say yeah, good, then I'll put a price that is worth it for me to make it.
That makes sense. And as a rule, that's generally worked, by and large, in terms of your.
It's great, because as a one-man shop, it allows me to scale without being tied to a pricing formula.
Right.
If I was doing it by the board foot or by the square foot, you're kind of locked into that. Whereas, if I'm 6 months out on projects, I'm able to say, let's throw some higher prices up there for a while until I get caught up. And then if I'm still 6 months out, 6 months from then I'll raise them again.
Okay. So then I guess the question that I would have in that, and we won't name names, or you're not responsible for, even sharing this if this isn't the case, but like, how do you deal with a customer that's, like, what's your process for somebody who's just not satisfied, or do you just over deliver as a rule, in terms of making sure that doesn't happen? Like, how do you have you experienced that first? I guess maybe even haven't experienced that.
I have. You have to be really honest with yourself, in terms of, is what they're having a problem with reasonable? And for the first rule I have for people is, if something doesn't seem right when you start your first conversation with the customer, don't take the commission. I know the urge that you want. And I have colleagues. I got a friend across town here that makes really beautiful furniture, and he told me about this customer that was just being such a pain, and they're trying to work through it, and like beating him up on price. And finally they settled on something, and then when it got delivered, 8 months later, the guy's suing him for his money because it's not like he wanted it.
Yeah.
And so
And
this guy's on the hook, for $15,000 project that he's probably not going to get paid for. So he should have known better.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that as an attack towards him, but you can feel it out. If something doesn't seem right at the start, just don't work with that person. But I've had a
That's got to
customer.
be hard though when you're just starting out. I mean, I get it. Like,
Super hard.
yeah,
Super hard.
yeah.
And
But
you're
when
and
when you know,
well,
right?
and for the record, if you guys are out there, anybody listening to this, you're not going to listen to me, and that's fine, because the only way you know is by learning the hard way. Because if someone has a $5,000 order and you have nothing to do, you have no orders, then you're gonna be like, it's $5,000, I'll be fine, and you might be okay, but might not be. And so the first thing is just being careful about the customers you choose. But then, if they have a problem, like, put yourself in their shoes. Is it a reasonable problem? And
Yeah.
I've told this story before, but I had a table, went to Hawaii. The person didn't live there. They got there 6 months later, maybe even like a year later. They hadn't seen the table yet. It just sat there in a box, and it was a white epoxy table, and it turned yellow, like very yellow. And I told him, I was like, I'm so sorry. And it was, a year later or whatever it was. I could have said, whatever, warranty's expired. And I told him, I said, what do you want? Do you want your money back? Do you want another table? What can I do for you? And she says, oh, I'd love another table. And I told her, I don't recommend white, but, do you want a different color? And she said, yes. And then the next day she called me and said, we actually need a dining table too. So she bought a $10,000 dining table because I honored, made that one right.
Awesome. That's awesome, man. And this one for some of you might hit home. Maybe you're not necessarily in this niche. It's from Vigo 121, and it says, the question is, what kept you going when you hit those low points and those lulls in order sales, commissions? And it sounds like you're in the leather working business there, and you're finding it discouraging. What words of encouragement do you have for somebody who hasn't hit it? I mean, I think most people would agree you're definitely on quite a trajectory here with the channel and the inspiration you're bringing. But like all of us, there are these times or these moments where you just struggle, and
Sure.
maybe just speak into that if you don't mind, because I'm sure you've been there because you're human.
Sure. It's like anything. It's a balance, I think, between, you don't want to abandon the good things you're doing. You don't want to say, I need to scrap everything and, change the way I'm doing it, but you need to reevaluate, I think, what you're doing. And, I try to stay ahead of, things getting tired. And it's always, whether that's views on YouTube or, customers for, or projects for customers, I'm trying not to get stale. I know I'm known for doing a lot of epoxy, but some people probably notice I'm slowly trying to, like, diversify my portfolio, if you want to call it that. But it's hard. If you trust what you're doing and you've had success in the past, I think just any business, whether it's more social media, more whichever, find a place that you think that you're lacking or other people are having success, emulate what they're doing, and see if it can kind of right the ship and get you back on it.
Some of the best advice I ever heard when I used to be an educator for years, and I not that anybody wants to hear my story, but I realized I couldn't be teaching when I'm like 55 because I'd just be grumpy as all get up. And then just exactly what you said. It's like, find out what somebody has, what you want, and just kind of do what they're doing. Do what you're doing, which leads to this next question. And then we're going to transition more into the online building of the brand. What's the best way to advertise if you got a tight budget? Because I'm sure that's where you were at when you originally started out on Instagram, as suggested by your wife.
Yeah. I'll reiterate that is social media. It's free, and it's so much better than anything else. And one of the things I do these consultations where I'll do these one-on-one talks with people, and I get these 50 to 60-year-old guys that do some part-time woodworking. Maybe they're changing careers or kind of retiring and doing it on the side. And they ask me this, how do I get in front of people? And I tell them social media, and they go, oh, I don't like social media. Yeah. And I go, okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Now what? Yeah. But that's the answer. And, if you don't, I don't like spending thousands of dollars on advertising. So that's something I don't like, but sometimes it's necessary. So social media, just all the social media, Pinterest and TikTok and Instagram and whatever you have time for, and wherever you're getting your return. If you're seeing a lot from TikTok, then great. You can scale back some of the other ones. And if you're getting a lot on Instagram or Facebook, keep going with what's working.
And I think one of the first things you did too is you built a project for your mother-in-law, wasn't it? And then that kind of like snowballed, just kind of getting it out there, and
Yeah. And that is something you need. You need some projects before someone will pay you hundreds or thousands of dollars out there. You need some kind of portfolio.
yeah,
So I know a lot of woodworkers that have done this, and this is definitely what I did, is, building stuff for myself or family members. And that one for my mother-in-law was a gift, but I'll tell a family member or whoever, you could say, hey, if you want to cover materials, I think it'll be good. You don't want to overpromise, because if you haven't built it, but if you'll pay for materials, I'll build this for free. And that way you can at least build your portfolio up. And if you mess something up, you don't have a customer that's, paid you thousands of dollars, furious at you.
And I mean too, for those watching, I mean, that's content, right? That's content that's going to drive future sales on your social portals, even if they are. I mean, everybody starts out small. Like, everybody probably looks at you and your 1.5, 1.6 million subscribers, and you weren't always, like that's kind of where we're going to transition next is to the online brand. But before we do that, there's a couple of links in the description below. We're not going to be too salesy, because we're here to answer questions. But if you wanted to learn more about epoxy, because there's a lot of questions in here about epoxy, and I know I've read the testimonials from what this course has done. Just if you click the link in the description below, there is an epoxy full-on Blacktail Studio epoxy workshop that you can access, and it's enrollment. The testimonials are absolutely coming in terms of, if this is something you want to build out, you want to learn how to kind of get into this. Obviously, we can't go through epoxy, in a live situation like this, but Cam unpacks the whole process that's led to his success. And, probably more than anything, in me speaking to you about this is kind of, if you can mitigate those mistakes, because they're expensive, I'm sure, when you're just starting out.
Yeah, and I want to be clear, like, you can watch my YouTube videos and build an epoxy table. This is more of like, if you really, really want to deep dive in the stuff that gets almost too, not, this will tell you how unsalesy I'm going to be. The stuff that's too boring for YouTube, when I want to spend a half hour discussing sanding or something like that, it's on there. And so it's just, I built it so I could have every single step of building an epoxy table, whereas YouTube, I have to keep it interesting for a whole 20 minutes. So, I'm really proud of it. It's $99. It's half the price of my 30-minute consultations. So I hardly do any of those anymore, because I just send people to this.
Yeah. And honestly, it's been a great resource for so many people. The second thing I'm going to mention before we get into the online build is this right here is the opportunity to build that table right there. Plus, I believe there's 26 other plans involved in that. If you're just starting out, or just if, like so many people on YouTube, it's a hobby, then this is probably for you as well. There's 26 entry-level woodworking plans that you can finish in a weekend. And then, of course, if you click that link, you can check it out. And it really shares the plans for Cam's book match table base project. Plans are detailed.
Let me jump in. If anybody's curious, that's a desk I built for my wife a couple of years ago. There's a YouTube video on it, and people were always asking me for plans. And Adam knew a guy that actually draws plans. I don't know if he is an architect or he does that.
Brian Forden, and I bet you he's going to watch this, because he's a fan, and I always like to give him a shout out. He just does phenomenal work. But yes.
Anyway, but what I told Adam is, I was like, this kind of is a pretty advanced project. It's not easy. And he's like, well, let's do it with some beginner plans too. So it's all on there.
Yeah, so there's 26 other ones in there, plus a live on June 9th. Cam's going to go live and answer all your questions if you purchase that. Link in the description below. But that's really not why we're here. We are here to kind of, as we got about 15 to 20 minutes left, continue on. We're going to get into building your online brand. And what was your very first? You shared a little bit about it. Did you start off on Instagram mostly? Or was it, I know it was further down the road where you started to go after YouTube?
1 second. I'm trying to write these. Good question when I see it down.
Okay.
Oh,
I can
wait.
pull it on here. Or
No,
did
hold
I?
on. We lost. No,
Oh,
no. We'll wait. We'll wait till the end.
okay. When I scroll, did the questions move for you as well?
Hold on. I lost
Okay.
train of thought here.
Okay. Must be a good one then. That
No,
might be.
I mean, honestly, it's an average question, so maybe there'll be a better one.
Oh, okay. We won't put it on here then. We are going to transition into building the online brand.
All right. Sorry. Go ahead now.
Yeah, and just a reminder, if you're just joining us, Cam, hey, why don't you just hold it up if you don't mind, if you can just snag it there. We're going to give away this epoxy serving board here for kind of the best questions that are asked. And if you don't make it on here, we'll still go through the questions afterwards and go through it. But you mentioned that it was more Instagram where you started, just because, I mean, obviously the content's more digestible and it's easy. And then, what inspired you to kind of make that leap to YouTube, which is far more labor intensive in terms of, the actual output?
Instagram had gone pretty well. And one day I just told my wife kind of the same thing. I was like, I think I'm gonna make a YouTube video. And it was kind of the same response. She's like, good idea. And she I think she goes, like, what are you hoping to get out of it? And I go, I don't know. And she goes, okay. Like, and I really didn't know. Like, the absolute last thing I ever thought is it would be like it is now. But I thought maybe a customer might see it, maybe maybe some good will come from it. And, a lot of good did come from it. So I just took a chance, and it was, a fair amount of work, but it paid off.
So what type of content do you think really works on YouTube?
That's the big question. There's a lot to that. We could probably have a whole call on that, or probably a whole workshop on that. I think being really earnest, not hiding your mistakes, being normal and not annoying. I'm sure I annoy some people, but people, if there's anything on YouTube that you don't like, don't do that in your own YouTube videos. And I don't feel a lot of people follow that rule.
Yeah.
So it's a really hard question. I think there's a lot to the story, which I think I accidentally got a lot of the storytelling right without really thinking about it. But now I'm giving a little bit more thought into telling the story. But it's a tough question, and it's different for everybody. Lean into what you're good at and who you are. Don't try to be another YouTuber because you saw him do it this way.
Yeah. Yeah. I just as an observer, that's kind of what, the hook you tell at the beginning. We talked about this briefly, but the idea that there's a story behind, kind of every single project, and really fleshing that out, as an observer of your content, that to me is unique. And they're really, even in your longer videos, there's nothing really in there that doesn't kind of lead the audience down that path of kind of telling that story. We got a question here from Ryan. What takes longer for you, the build or the editing process?
It's a good question. When I started that first couple of YouTube videos, a build would take me twice as long to build it and video it as it would just to build it without doing it. Now it probably takes me 4 times as long, maybe more. You think as you get better with, audio video stuff that you'd get quicker, but you find out you're lacking in certain areas. So you're like, okay, now I'm going to get better sound, and now I'm going to get better light, and I'm going to get better this. And so, a lot more on the editing and video side than the build.
I know, like it is labor intensive, but you got to kind of take that leap. I know that you put a lot into that, and this is you kind of shared the answer to this question from Heart to Home Woodworking. Any key tips for growing your new woodworking business through YouTube? I know you've transitioned out of that a little bit in terms of what that looks like, just in terms of commissions, and I know potentially do some more down the road. But ultimately, if you ask this question, What would this have looked like for you probably 3-4 years ago in terms of key tips through YouTube?
One of the things, if you're going to do it on YouTube, especially, is it sounds counter, but don't be afraid to show a mistake. And that's really for anybody on YouTube. But for a customer, if you can have a problem, and of course, we're all going to have problems building something, you can say, oh man, this is what happened, whether it's your fault or fault of the wood or the product or whatever it is. Let's work through it just like we do in real life. And now a customer can say, oh, wow, he had this problem and he went to all these steps to make it right. And now they can feel a little bit better about buying their project through you.
I'm just going to throw this one on here because there's so many like this. And it's just the inspiration, I think, is that must be, it's always those comments where it's like, oh, negative comments, but it's like, it's like one negative comment offsets like 7, but just looking at this thread right now, I mean, there's just so much good.
People are overwhelmingly positive. And if you do watch my page, I post a lot of the quote troll comments.
Yeah.
I actually have to scroll fast through all the nice comments to try to find one of those. So those don't get me down, just so you guys know. Like, I'm overwhelmingly positive with everybody. So I appreciate the support, and I do need it. But you guys seem to laugh at the troll one, so I got to find those ones.
Yeah, I know DeResta, he'll pin, anyways, we laughed. We did a live a while ago, and he'll pin a troll comment to the top and just like, have at her, boys. It's just, it's kind of like self-policing by, the people that are overwhelmingly positive.
And that's the thing is, you guys are animals when it comes to supporting me. So I'm actually a little afraid to like turn people loose on other people because I'm afraid it'll go a little too far.
It's definitely possible. Software. This comes in for more of a practical. What software do you use to produce your channel?
Sure. I use DaVinci Resolve to do my video editing. Premiere is kind of the standard. I tried it when I didn't know how to edit, and I didn't like it as much, and I tried DaVinci Resolve, and it seemed to make more sense for me. And it's not a subscription; it's like a one-time fee. So I liked Resolve better. Before that, I was using the standard iMovie on my iPhone, like the whatever standard video editing on my iPhone, and I literally edited my first. I got to 700,000 subscribers doing filming and editing every video on my iPhone.
Wow.
So that's another thing when people are like, oh, I don't have a nice camera, or I don't have this, I don't know how to do that. It's like, neither did I.
Yeah. And then leads into this question. Great question. Why don't you contract out your editing?
It's a good question. I hired my first employee, May 15th, he'll be here.
Wow.
I got a full-time videographer. He's going to do all my video. Well, I'll still have to do some of my filming, but he's going to do all my editing and most of my video work.
Cool, man. So that's next month. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Nice.
Yeah, I'm excited.
And then what's your time frame with a video? Like, I know you have a regular content release schedule, and obviously with the video editor, that's going to help. But like, what is your average video from kind of concept to release date on YouTube? What's the run on that?
It's tough because today I got a really appealing sponsorship offer from a brand, and it'll require, the way we're going to do it, it's going to have to be a new project that's not for a customer, because we're going to auction it off for charity. And so they're like, hey, how's June look? And I'm like, I don't think I can do June, because I got to, if I'm going to build it, edit it, do everything. So, a couple months really from inception from this, I told them I'll aim for July and hope we can do that, but it's going to be hard. It's going to be tight.
Yeah. Because it is a grind. It's a lot of work that goes into there. What camera do you use? There's a couple questions about cameras. Did you mention that? I don't think you did.
I haven't mentioned it. No. So I knew I needed to get into a real camera long before I did, and I got a sponsorship offer from Nikon to give me a bunch of really nice gear. So I've been using the Nikon Z6 II. It's what I'm still using, but, and this isn't I've enjoyed the Nikon. I think it's great. I needed to buy a second camera because when I'm hiring this guy, because we're going to have kind of 2 cameras going. And that was the point of like, I'm going to have to really commit to a format if I'm going to do this. And so I watch a lot of camera YouTubers. Like that's where I get all my knowledge. Just so like
Yeah.
some of you guys might from woodworking. And so I talked to a guy, one of my favorite YouTubers is Make Art Now. His name's Josh Yo.
Okay.
And he's responded to some messages from me before, and I was asked him. I know he uses Sony, and so I got a Sony A7 IV, and then the second camera is a Sony A7 III. So I'm about to switch over to Sony.
Okay, awesome. For those of you who asked that question, there's a few of them in there. And I have two more questions for you because we're kind of hitting that 35-minute, 36-minute mark. We kind of want to wrap it up. There are a lot of questions about epoxy, which leads me to believe, that's why a lot of people are here, which is great. We kind of covered a bit of that. We didn't get into the weeds with that, but I mean, like Cam said, if you want all the details, click that link in the description. You can go over there and check out his
if you've seen the same question come up, I'm happy to rattle off some. I don't want to I don't want to get to the point where people are like, oh, he won't answer questions because he wants people to buy his course. So
yeah,
let's make a point to get some epoxy questions, because I still am totally happy to help for free with that. It's just that people can take that when I can't help them.
Okay, so then what type of epoxy? Well, let me just ask this one, then we can transition into kind of like the Q&As that aren't related. Well, let's wrap up the kind of the online brand and building that up.
It's hard to stay focused, right?
Oh man, it's nuts. It's nuts, especially when you want to answer all these questions as well.
Yeah.
In terms of what's somebody, there's a lot of people that are looking to you as like, that's the guy who has what I want, like we talked about earlier. And if you could give one piece of advice for somebody who's up and coming, like just one, and we won't hold you to it, but what would that be in terms of kind of like, this is the one thing I would do if I were you, in terms of getting to where you're at and experiencing this comparable success down the road?
Is it with in regards to social media, YouTube, or a woodworking business, or?
I think probably the latter of those two. Just because like this, it's for so long. It's like until you make that, if you haven't watched it, go back and watch it. The I Quit video. It's making that jump. And there's that gut check, right?
I think, and I hate saying this because it almost sounds cliche, but it's customer service. You have to treat them well, and you'll see the same thing from videos of Jeff Bezos in the 90s. It's like they're all saying the same thing. And really, it applies to YouTube too, because you guys are my customers. So if I'm not listening to you and I'm not doing what you guys want, or at least listening if I'm doing something wrong or could do it better, same with the customers. Put yourself in their shoes. I have a quick story from a guy paid for a consultation like a week ago, and he said that I'll try to keep it quick because this was an insane story. He had taken an order and the customer backed out. And I was like, oh, wow, like this is why you got to get a deposit. And he goes, oh, I got a deposit. And I go, oh, great. And I go, like, how'd they feel about that? He goes, well, I have a contract with them, so there's nothing they can do. And I go, okay. And we talked a little more, and I was like, so why'd the person back out? And he goes, well, I underestimated how much epoxy is going to be. And so it was, I thought it was only going to be this much. And so I told him the project was going to be another $1,000. And I go, so you changed the price on them, and then they said they don't want it, and then you kept their money? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, yeah, you can't do that, man. I was like, what if you'd ordered a new planer and then the price went up and you put a deposit down, and then they said, oh, the price is now doubled of your planer, give us more money. And you said, I can't afford that. And then they kept your money. And he's like, yeah, that's true. And I'm like, so that's like one end of the customer service spectrum. So on the other end, it's just, treat people how you want to be treated. If you'd like it one way, and just put yourself in their shoes.
Mm-hmm. The kind of leads a little bit of this. It's kind of probably the latter of these, or the middle one here doesn't. This is an epoxy question. What do you spend the most money on? Probably I wouldn't put tools into that, because I mean that's such a heavy question. But like when you go to do a project where you're doing an epoxy table for a commission-based work, is it the wood that's more expensive? Is it the epoxy? Just to give people a grid here.
Well, I've had an epoxy sponsor for a couple of years, so it's not epoxy, because they would give me the epoxy for free, which has been nice. I buy tools, but I just buy them because I like them. So Yeah, the wood. Sometimes the base can get pretty expensive if I'm, commissioning it from a, steel worker. The wood's been really expensive lately. The prices have been going up on that.
Yeah. Like what's a range for a good slab that you use, like on the low end to the high end?
1,000 to 10,000.
10,000. So like those higher end commissions, a good portion of that is materials, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Question from Yitzi: would you ever consider making a glass river table?
I don't know if Yitzi knows. This is a contentious issue.
It is. Oh, wow.
No, so I had a little run in with the guy who had kind of coined the term river table, and he makes the glass ones. And do we want
to be unpacking this live on the internet?
No, we don't. And Steve Ramsey,
Okay.
when he did his interview, me and Bourbon Moth were talking about it, and we're like, we're not going to say the guy because we don't. He got like attacked by people, like attacked his wife and made horrible stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And verbally attacked, not physically. And so we're like, we're not going to say his name. And Steve's like Googling. He's like, I found him. And we're like,
perfect.
So he said it, but no. I thought about making a glass one and putting it out there as like how to make this guy's table, like because he thought we were ripping him off. And so I thought about really going on the nose and doing that, but I was like, no, let's just be the bigger person. We're gonna end this here. So I probably won't, but never say never.
Never say never. Never say never. I'm going to leave you with one more question here. And honestly, thank you for all the comments in there. We'll go through this and figure out who produced the best comment to get that serving board that Cam showed earlier. Question we're just going to kind of wrap it all up with looking back, since you kind of started this journey, is there anything that you would do differently?
I don't believe I don't like when the people say like, oh, I wouldn't change anything about my life because it led me to where I am here. And it's like, yeah, but if you're in that circumstance again or faced with the same decision, you might handle it differently. That said, there's nothing jumping out at me. I was maybe a little timid about going full time, but I think that, worked out, the way it played out. All in all, I think I took the chances I wanted to take, and it's worked out well for me. So not yet, but we'll see. Maybe it'll be a big mistake I'll make.
Okay. Well, hopefully not on a live with me. I'll tell you that right now. But man, somebody's Googling the glass river table right now in the comments. We're going to leave that. Anyways, man, it's been an absolute delight. We're 44 minutes, and we said we were going to be 45. So we're just on point here.
So do we have to pick a question now? Do you have a list of them? I got a couple that I liked.
Okay. Well, why don't I have one if you don't, but I think since
you read yours and I'll tell you if mine's better.
No, I can't do that because I can't do that.
No, that's no good.
No, because it's I can't defend. This is defendable on a different level. I'll tell you after. But go ahead. You pick it. You got it.
Well, mine's not great, and I don't.
Okay, well then I'll go with mine.
Okay.
But then we got to go with mine, and I'll spend if you're okay with that.
All right, go ahead.
The question we asked from the gal who was just discouraged, the highs and lows. I feel like that's somebody's being honest, somebody's being vulnerable, somebody's going, hey man, it's not working for me right now.
What was their name?
I'll find it later. I can't remember, but I'll go back and watch it. And I just thought, you know what? That's a great, vulnerable, honest question of somebody who's not pretending things are going awesome.
Absolutely.
And they
also to kind of speaking of the pretending things are going awesome, that's what social media is. Everybody pretends things are going awesome. So just because you think everybody else is killing it at whatever their craft is or whatever their life is, like people put the good stuff on there, including me, which I try to show the highs and lows, but I'll still filter out the real lows. Yeah.
And so that's why I couldn't defend it, because if you would have said that one's better, that'd probably make her, feel worse than she already.
That's fair. That's fair. No, that was actually a better question than mine. So
yeah. So sorry, I totally forgot your name. My apologies. It's hard keeping track of everything, but we'll go back and watch it and we'll figure out how to get that to you. Oh, Wyatt Dobbin here. We'll leave it. Man, Wyatt needs a shout out, man. Can you just give Wyatt a shout out?
Wyatt Dobbin. Hey, man. Appreciate you tuning in.
There you go. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining us. And if you want to learn more about epoxy, links are in the description. Check out Cam's next video is coming out when for the people.
Should be a week from today if I can really get buckled down on the editing and the voiceover.
Awesome, man. Okay, so thank you for letting me hijack your channel and interview on here. Is there anything final words you want to say? You can fly at her before I pull the plug.
Real quick, how do people like this live if you've been to the other lives? If this is a little more organized? So let me know in the comments of how this went for you guys having kind of the co-host here.
No, okay, okay. Don't throw me under the bus.
Yeah.
We will leave it at that note and we'll check. Hey, somebody said thanks, gentlemen. So, loves it. Okay, good. Awesome. Thank you very much.
Now he's going to end it before anybody can put in something negative.
Yes. Oh, another loved it. Hey, well, let's show that one. There you go. Now it's documented. Okay, guys, thanks so much for being here. Cam, thanks again, man. And we're going to end it in 3, 2,